throwback. Shalom. Assalamu alaikum. Namaste. ¿Cómo está? Welcome all. Share some information that I'm looking at. On this day, talk about some things. Talk about crime. And also, today, winter solstice through spring equinox drops. We're gonna check that out. There are the ISRC numbers. Looking like the shit you used to have to look at in the damn vision test. We got our own team. Speaking act moving for me. She formed me. She informed me. Keep me in formation. I don't know nothing about nothing. She tell me something. Year one, she everything. Food, clothing, and shelter. Year one. Remember how we all came here. How we not the same here in drama. Carry a piece that calm a beast, Dalai Lama. Red light and green light, freeze, move. Windmill and backspin to a freeze move. When chillin' cops harass with the freeze move. Antarctic got bases, that's the freeze move. Tell them please move, but you can't be nice. Fool for nobody, we been too nice. That's fool twice. Once for each eye, once for each ear, one for each hand, one for each foot, one for each nostril. Yeah. I got the Nibiru blues, baby. Cause ain't nobody getting the news. Listen to me. It's like make it rain on Monday, be snow on Tuesday. But a motion picture, pop and wave anomaly, watching a wave anomaly on the beach with Mrs. Thomas. English muffins, toasted just right. Hold up, just lost sight. Let's get back to these wave anomalies that's coming from the Antarctic, the kitchen of Antarctic. I'm sponge soap and hot water and wave anomaly when I wipe the counter. All ants on the Antarctic waving anonymously, making the Antarctic a restricted fly zone. The bar flips is in-house. Observe for now. Trying to give you a diss that ain't rap. The house look like a trap. Act move tracks, they straight crack. For you young dudes, Molly and Percocet. Filling with pillin', the rap is Dr. Fillin'. Everybody on the couch, these psychiatrists, nutritionists. Word from the mother, a new edition is just recorded. Antediluvian like BC. The birth certified after the water broke. BC like before the words were spoke. And BC because whackness give me a headache. We self-medicate. Shit. We living in a simulation. A ET simulation. A ET simulation. You should know by now, people's lives are dissected. The information and in the formation. And that was the snippets. So that's on deck. You know, give some sun energy and shit, sun imagery. That was a glitch. You know what I mean? In the footage from one of the satellite cams. So got that going on Leap Day. Leap Day. Motherfuckers is trying to control the calendar. Control the calendar. So people born on this day only celebrate their birthday every 4 years, right? See how crazy this shit is? You know what I mean? The sun does what the sun does. You know what I mean? And the earth does what she does in relation to it. The exchange, you know what I mean, of energy. Along with the other, you know what I mean, 9 centers. Or 8 centers. Depending on what you count and how you count. Talking about the United States, but I don't think people really know what the United States is. You know what I mean? And when we be like, it's a corporation, it's a business. You know what I mean? What that means. To put it in perspective, you know what I mean? The United States is like, you know what I mean, Walmart. Except, you know what I mean, they came over, took the resources by force. You know what I mean? And then set up their corporation after making a compact amongst themselves, but they were trying to break away to set up their own thing, set up their own business, because this all was a business venture, right? Business venture. Somebody had to finance this shit that they call the United States. You know what I mean? In its incorporation. But
I'm looking again at the Redemption Manual 4.5, you know, and just sharing it, you know what I mean, with the people who view this channel. You know what I mean, who know me, you know what I mean, it needs to be the things that, you know what I mean, we talk about, could talk about, gonna talk about, all that. And then, you know what I mean, show you to others more experienced and further along in just this part of, um, I don't even know what to call it. It's just our cultural collective information and awareness of what we are piecing together about ourselves and what we need to know in order to make informed actions and shit. Because that's all that's going to make a change. Actions. And there are two different definitions of actions. There's a legal definition of an action, and then there's, you know what I mean, what we know as action in layman's terms. You know what I mean? Motion goes along with it. You know what I mean? Because motion is an action. But let's get down to just this part right here. United States, U.S., U period, S period, USA, U period, S period, A period, America, United States of America. Means a federal corporation. Title 28 USC, which is United States Code, Section 3002, 15A, Chapter 176. It is clear that the United States is a corporation. 534 Federal Supplement 724. I'm pretty sure I got these somewhere, but we got Google right now so we can look up Title 28. Pull it up. Click, paste. Dun, dun. Take you to Cornell Law. We'll open that in a new tab. Boom, so we can see it and see what else is surrounding it. U.S. Code Title 28 is Judiciary and Judicial Procedure. Part 6 is Particular Proceedings. Chapter 176 is Federal Debt Collection Procedure. Subchapter A is Definitions and General Provisions. Section 3002, Definitions. This is the U.S. Code as used in this chapter. 1. Quote, Counsel for the United States, end quote, means A. A United States Attorney, an Assistant United States Attorney designated to act on behalf of the United States Attorney, or an attorney with the United States Department of Justice or with a federal agency who has litigation authority, and B, any private attorney authorized by contract made in accordance with Section 3718 of Title 31 to conduct litigation for collection of debts on behalf of the United States. Right? But what are we looking for? 15A 176. 15A. United States means a federal corporation, an agency, department, commission, board, or other entity of the United States, or an instrumentality of the United States. That's what United States means. A federal corporation. You know what a corporation is because you're surrounded by corporations. We're all surrounded by corporations. Each of these places that appear on a map, should we open up a map? Should we open up Google Earth? Nah, we ain't gonna do that. You know what a map is? You can look at a map, but all those places on the map, you know what I mean, are corporations. Virginia is a corporation, Georgia is a corporation, Arizona is a corporation. All these are corporations. You know what I mean, within the United States Corporation. Or the United States. But they have a limited, you know what I mean, area jurisdiction and all that shit like any company does. Right? Can only control what belongs to it. Right? This is just common sense stuff, right? Like 7-Eleven or Walmart or Kmart or Roses or any of those places. Authority only extends to, you know what I mean, their property. Rules and regulations only apply to their employees, right? It's the same thing with this corporation. You have to start asking yourself, are you an employee of the United States? You know what I mean? That's why it's important to learn what things really mean. So we use these words every day, but we have a different idea of what they actually mean. Or we have a different idea of what they mean. You mean compared to what they actually mean. So you be walking around with your patriotism and shit, and you be gung ho, we this and we that. You know what I mean? You gotta understand or know what you saying when you say we. We, like you French or something. State means any of the several states, the District of Columbia, the Commonwealth of Puerto Rico, the Commonwealth of Northern Marianas, or any territory or possession of the United States Corporation. Alright? So that's what I mean when I say We can pull it up on Google. So we just read Title 28 USC Section 3002 Chapter 176. You saw it. I saw it. It is clear that the United States is a corporation. All right. 534, Federal Supplement 724. It is well settled that, quote, United States, and note the spelling because that is important, end quote, et al. Is a corporation, originally incorporated February 21st, 1871. All right. It is a corporation. It was originally incorporated. You know what incorporated is? Anybody who has a business knows, you know what I mean, what it is to have your business incorporated. What is incorporated? Shall we look it up in Black's Law? Yeah, because we got Black's Law here. Might as well. Incorporated. And we want to match case. Incorporate. Dum, 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 dum. Make it big so we can see it. Incorporate. To create a corporation, to confer a corporate franchise upon determinate persons, to declare that another document shall be taken as part of the document in which the declaration is made, as much as if it were set out at length therein. That was the Railroad Company versus Cup. 8th Indiana Court of Appeals, maybe 388, 35. See, I gotta learn these annotations. About to hit this voice search real quick so we can see, but that's what incorporate means. Alright, right there. Incorporation is the act or process of forming or creating a corporation, the formation of a legal or political body with the quality of perpetual existence and succession, unless limited by the act of incorporation. The method of making one document of any kind become a part of another separate document by referring to the former in the latter, and declaring that the former shall be taken and consideration as a part of the latter, the same as if it were fully set out therein. This is more fully described as incorporation by reference. If the one document is copied at length in the other, it is called actual incorporation. All right. In civil law, the union of one domain to another. All right. How do you read case law citations? So we go right here. I got it on my tablet. You can't see me. Reading a case citation. Cases are published in reporters. A case citation is generally made up of the following parts: the names of the parties involved in the lawsuit, right? Two, the volume number of the reporter containing the full text of the case. So I have to look up the reporters. Three, the abbreviated name of that case reporter. Four, the page number on which the case begins, the year the case was decided, and sometimes five, the name of the court deciding the case. Below is an example of a case citation. Hebb versus Severson is the name of the parties involved in the lawsuit. 201P 2D 156. The case can be found in volume 201 of the Pacific Reporter, second series, on page 156. The case was decided by the Washington State Supreme Court in 1948. And that is how you read case citation. But first, you have to be familiar with the court reports. All right, the Pacific Reporter. How to find a case by citation. Once you have a citation, the first step in locating the case is to identify the appropriate reporter. As in the above, the abbreviated title of the reporter will be found in the citation. Use the following list to convert the abbreviation in your site to a full reporter title. Alright, so it gives the list of these reporters. How many are there? Yeah, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, 24. 24. Yeah, the Federal Reporter, the Federal Reporter Second Series, the Federal Reporter Third Series, the Federal Supplement, the Federal Supplement Second Series, Federal Cases, Federal Claims Reporters, Federal Rules Decisions, U.S. Supreme Court Decisions, Lawyers Edition, U.S. Supreme Court Decisions, Lawyers Edition Second Series, Northeastern Reporter, Northeastern Reporter Second Series, Northwestern Reporter, Northwestern Reporter Second Series, the New York Supplemental, New York Supplemental Second Series, Pacific Reporter, Pacific Reporter Second Series, Pacific Reporter Third Series, Supreme Court Reporter, Southeastern Reporter, Southeastern Reporter Second Series, Southern Reporter, Southern Reporter Second Series. So now that we understand that, we can now look back at this case, right, that was cited, which was the Railroad Company versus Cup, which is in the 8th Indiana Appeals, which doesn't appear here. But it's in the Northeastern Reporter, 703. So you can find it in the 35th. So in the appendix, maybe. Then they have a more extensive list of abbreviations. Consult either the abbreviations table in the Blue Book, a uniform system of citation. Hmm. ALWD Citation Manual or Beaver's Dictionary of Legal Abbreviations. Ask at the reference desk for assistance in locating these sources. After you have identified the complete name of the case reporter, you will want to locate that reporter series in the law library. A location table is available at the reference desk to assist you. Now that you have found the reporter series, the next step is to identify the volume where the case is located. In a citation, the volume number always precedes the abbreviated reporter title. Next, you need to determine the page on which the case begins. The page number always follows the abbreviation or the abbreviated reporter title in your citation. Now that you have identified the appropriate volume and page number, pull the volume from the shelf. Volume numbers are located on the spine of each reporter. Turning to the appropriate page, you will find the full text of the opinion of the court. Using the volume reporter abbreviation page number is also the best way to find a case electronically. And then you got statutory citations. So yeah, I'm gonna get into that. Keep that page on deck. Go ahead and add that to my star bookmarked. Bookmark that. But we got the understanding that the United States is a corporation that was incorporated, right? So it is well settled that the United States et al. Is a corporation, originally incorporated February 21st, 1871, under the name what? Quote, District of Columbia, end quote. That's 16 Statute 419, Chapter 62. It was reorganized June 11th, 1878, right? And if you have a business, you know, or you are somewhat familiar with what these terms and what these things mean. Because when you went to get your business incorporated, you came up with a name for your business. The name for this business was District of Columbia first. It was originally incorporated February 21st under the name District of Columbia. Let's look this statute up real quick over here. Local government. We could go to the easy Wikipedia, right? Where it calls it the District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871. There's the seal and all that, blah, blah, blah. The District of Columbia Organic Act of 1871 is an act of Congress that repealed the individual charters of the cities of Washington and Georgetown and established a new territorial government for the whole District of Columbia. Though Congress repealed the territorial government in 1874, the legislation was the first to create a single municipal government for the federal district. Let me see, it's got the pop up notes. A federal district is a type of administrative division of a federation, federal, federation, fed, usually under the direct control of a federal government and organized sometimes with a single municipal body. Federal districts often include capital districts, and they exist in various federations worldwide. The history. The passage of the Residence Act in 1790 created a new federal district that would become the capital of the United States Corporation. The capital of the United States Corporation. So you have to put it all in perspective. The capital. What is a capital? What is a capital? We're going to come back in a second with what is a capital. Alright, so I said we was going to talk about capital because it was talking about the District of Columbia as the capital. Hold on. Yeah, see, that was the introduction to that gender bending agenda. You know what I mean? The whole men who want to take it and to shoot shit. That's what that was about. And how it's hidden in signs and symbols. That was on Branch of Knowledge. You know what I mean? Crumb TV. I was looking at that, but let's get back to capital. District of Columbia, which is the capital of the corporation called the United States. But what is capital? Yeah, they spell it with an O. But we're gonna go to that too. Let me remove the symbol. Boom. So capital. Now, the word may have different meanings when used in different connections. Commissioner of Corporations and Taxation. Verse Filoon. It may mean actual property or estate. It may mean actual property or estate. People versus commerce, taxes, commissioners of taxes. That's all the case law that you can look up. Aggregate of property. It can be an aggregate of property. All capital invested plus surplus or undivided profits. An amount or value of property up to par, value of paid up issued shares, or stated value of no par shares. Assets, capital stock, condemnation award, dividends earned before creation of trust, dividends received by trustee stockholder in liquidation of corporation, extraordinary dividends paid on reducing value of stock, money invested at interest, money required of partners by agreement. All these things are capital. Money required of partners by agreement. Wait a minute, we're gonna have to look at all of this, right? Because you got earned before trust, then you got dividends received by trustee stockholder and liquidation of corporation, and you got extraordinary dividends paid on reducing value of stock. Gain from sale of realty. Means contributed by share owners. Money invested at interest. Money required of partners by agreement. You have money which one adventures in an undertaking. Paid up issues, shares of stock. All that is capital. What else? What else is capital? It is place where legislative departments holds its sessions and where chief offices of the executive are located. Political and governmental metropolis. That is also a capital. And they tuck that right in the middle of preferred stock received as dividend, principal sum of a fund of money, proceeds of sale or exchange of capital of trust property, right? Property, right? Repayment of a debt is capital. Receipt of government is capital. Stock dividends is capital. You hear that? Subscribed, paid up, capital. Sum formed when profits apportioned to building and loan association shares coalesce with dues paid. All that is the legal definition of capital. So for them to say, you know what I mean, in their corporation that the capital is in the District of Columbia, the District of Columbia, like Christopher Colomb, Columbia, Colombian. But let's continue on with what capital is. It's long, and that's just the noun, right? It's the sum total of corporate stock, surplus used as capital, unamortized debt, discount and expense. All these things are capital. In political economy, that portion of the produce of industry existing in a country which may be made directly available either for the support of human existence or the facilitating of production. That's also capital. The term does not embrace temporary loans. That's not capital. Income, check this out. Income is the fruit of capital. Capital is the source of income. Income is the fruit of capital. Capital is the source of income. Then it says, as to what is moneyed capital in a federal act respecting state taxation of national bank stock. See First National Bank versus Chapman. That's where you can get that information. Then you have capital as an adjective, affecting or relating to the head or life of a person, entailing the ultimate penalty, principal, leading, chief, as capital Burgess. Right? That's capital as an adjective, affecting or relating to the head or life of a person. You know, they come for your head, you know what I mean, your life. Capital offense, capital punishment, entailing the ultimate penalty. Yeah, your head or the head or your life. One's gonna lead to the other. Principal, leading, chief, as capital Burgess. Then you have capital assets, all capital invested plus surplus or undivided profits. Assets of a permanent or fixed nature or employed in carrying on business or trade. All this is going on with the capital. Goodwill, that's capital. Property acquired and held for profit or investment for more than 2 years, that's capital. Title to property held for profit, that's capital. Title to property. So you have to know what titles is and everything because You sign your titles over, messing around out here. Then you have a capital expenditure, right? You hear them talking about that. That's the cost of construction made with expectation of existence for an indefinite period. You know, expenditure in nature of an investment for the future. That's a capital expenditure. Something we should probably get into, right? Then you got capital gains, right? What is a capital gain? It's additions to principal. So, to call the District of Columbia the capital of the corporation called the United States, what does that say? What does that say? They put it right there in plain black and white, like I'm sitting right here reading it off the screen, right? So let's go back to where we were in the manual when we was talking about the United States Corporation and the District of Columbia, right? It said it is well settled that, quote, United States, end quote, et al. Is a corporation originally incorporated February 21st, 1871 under the name District of Columbia, 16, Statute 419, Chapter 62. It was reorganized June 11th, 1878. Reorganized, you know, as companies sometimes do. A bankrupt organization per House Joint Resolution 192 on June 5th, 1933. The company went bankrupt. Senate Report 93-549 and Executive Orders 6072, 6102, and 6246. A de facto, and you have to define de facto after the fact government. It is a de facto government. Originally, the 10 square mile tract ceded by Maryland and Virginia, which are both companies, and comprising Washington District of Columbia, plus the possessions, territories, forts, and arsenals. Right? The significance of this is that as a corporation, the United States has no more authority to implement its laws against, quote, we the people, end quote, of all walks of life than does McDonald Corporations, except for one thing: the contracts we've signed as surety for our straw man with the United States and the creditor bankers. These contracts bind all people by misrepresentations, together with the United States and the bankers, are actually not valid with the true flesh and blood man or woman or womb man, but with all artificial but with our artificial entity, AI or AE now, artificial entity with artificial intelligence, or as they term it, person, which appears to be us but is spelled with all capital letters. You know what I mean? This is to people who don't know these things. You know what I mean? These are the people that I meet every day. You know what I mean? Right out there, because I'm right out there with them. I didn't know any of this stuff. You know what I mean? Until it was shown to me. You know what I mean? And I was pointed in directions, and I went and I started looking up these things, and I was, you know what I mean, fortunate enough or blessed enough, you know what I mean, to have people who gave me a lot of digital information, a lot of digital documentation, books, PDFs, all that stuff. You know what I mean? That I studied through. You know what I mean? But this shit is just like the Matrix. It's one thing to be able to. It's one thing to read this shit and know the words to this shit. It's a totally different thing to put it in action. action, lights, camera, action, right? Yeah, and this is what binds us to this shit. You know what I mean? When we go and make these contracts with these corporations, like whatever corporation it is that you are working for. You know what I mean? Whether it's McDonald's, Uber, Lyft, you know what I mean? Amazon, Google, motherfucking Walmart, you know what I mean? The list goes on and on and on. You know what I mean? All corporations, you know what I mean? And they control your life to the extent that they are able to control your life through the contract. You know what I mean? To make it make sense. You know what I mean? But you not a you not a McDonald's employee when you go home, right? You're not a McDonald's employee, you know what I mean, when you um taking your children out, you know what I mean, or the stuff that you do on your own time, right? When you're being you, the living soul, right? So I read all this stuff, you know what I mean, to go add to documentation that I've already been putting forth, you know what I mean? But you gotta step your game up. That's what I say to myself. I gotta step my game up. Step to it. A lot of things hang in the balance, right? Because you got coronavirus and shit like that, and the atmosphere that it creates. You know what I mean? Pandemic. And in pandemic, the de facto governments want to try to treat you, you know what I mean, like property and tell you what to do, where to go, how to do it. You know what I mean? That's when that shit comes into play. And that's when you need to have made notice, you know what I mean, that you are not who they assume you to be. Anyway, that deals with the birth certificate, you know what I mean? You should take a look at your birth certificate, but let's read the paragraph. First, your birth certificate was voluntarily given by your mother through misrepresentations to the state of corporations of and then entered into the commercial registry for registration within the United States when you were born. See, the commercial registry for registration, right? Think about the things that you have to register. You have to register your automobile. This is what we've been taught. You know what I mean, through the whole indoctrination program. You have to register your automobile. You have to register your weapons. You have to register your children. You have to register your, you know what I mean, yourself in some cases. So this is in commerce. This, or should I say, this in commerce gave title to your body, right? Because when you go register something, right, you supposed to get the title. This in commerce gave title to your body by way of illicit, constructive, or other types of contracts. Now, all of us are members by mistake and or misrepresentation of the Babylonian system in every manner. Babylonian system. Babylon, right? Next, the government created an artificial person, an organization, a fictitious entity, and what we call an artificial entity and or straw man. Hay, made out of hay. Straw man, but made out of hay. Hay is life, living. Hey you, hey y'all. And through an adhesion contract, the government then made you, the real man or woman, responsible for, fiduciary for, and surety for that artificial entity. And these are terms that we need to, know and understand. But since most of our, children and ourselves got basic educations and none of this stuff was taught, you have to give, you have to get it after you leave, the indoctrination. And then you have to build upon it and move it forward, which is what, a lot of good brothers and sisters is out here doing. So, we said the government created the artificial person, right? So, this is how your artificial entity or your AE secured the national debt. This is how your artificial entity secured the national debt. And through it, you became a 14th Amendment citizen with a lowercase c of the United States, all cap as a corporation. That's what all caps is. Fictitious entities, corporations, organizations. You became a 14th Amendment citizen of the United States. An amendment to a constitution which formed a company, again, treating you as if you are an employee or member of the company, the corporation. All licenses and all existing contracts are made between the United States or the state of whatever state your straw man resides in and your artificial entity. All licenses and all existing contracts are made between the United States or the state of whatever state your straw man or your fictitious entity, your artificial entity, your AE resides in, and your artificial entity, right? That fictitious entity binds you to the United States because they have through adhesion contracts, adhesion like when motherfuckers stick tape to your ass or web fluid, but it's got adhesion through adhesion contracts made you the real man or woman fiduciary and responsible for that artificial entity and or straw man. And since that's the case, you need to know what that means. Of course, you voluntarily sign and even request all of those contracts, don't you? Whether by misrepresentation, condition of mind, or mistake, right? All of these contracts you sign carry with them your agreement to obey and uphold all the laws, rules, and regulations passed by the Congress of the United States Corporation and the state of dot 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 and will be enforced against you. Do you understand that? I say it again. All of these contracts you sign carry with them your agreement to obey and uphold all the laws, right? The rules, right? And regulations, right? That are passed by who? The Congress of the United States Corporation. You need to think about that. Think about it like this. All right. McDonald's, right? And they board of owners. They get together and they come up with the rules and the regulation and the laws concerning McDonald's, right? But you don't work at McDonald's, right? But McDonald's has somehow forced a contract on you to make you have to, you know what I mean, adhere to the laws, rules, and codes of McDonald's. That's what this means. This is what happened, you know what I mean, when we sign over our children through these birth certificates, and then, you know what I mean, we made contracts, you know what I mean, for like social security and all that shit with no understanding. There's not full disclosure, as they say. You know, you didn't know everything about this shit. None of us did. Still don't. Still learning. So, and just because you don't know, don't mean, you know what I mean, nothing. They'll still enforce it on you, as we see every day. So from that day forward, we could never own any property because the state now had possession of it all, signed it over. That's the power of your signature, the power of your pen, the power of your voice. You know what I mean? When making a verbal contract. So be aware. You know what I mean? Take note. You know what I mean? Can't say wake up because, we say we woke and we still walking around with slippers and pajamas on in the middle of the afternoon. Wherever we at, we shopping, we doing it all. Like, you know, but we gotta, you know, if we can figure out what it is, then, we can come up with the solution to it, which is what brothers and sisters is out here doing. But you have to know these basic things. You have to know what the hell happened and where you are and what this place is called the United States. You know what I mean? And what it means to call yourself a citizen of or any part of. And you need to know the whole history, not just the edited dictation taught in school. You know what I mean? As an education or edited dictation. You know what I mean? They put in what information they wanted to put in, and that was the curriculum, the current and shit. And motherfuckers is still learning the shit that their grandparents was learning in school. So, continuing on. Hold on. Let me take a quick little break real quick. Just real quick. Alright. So, let's continue. In 1964, the state obtained title to our property. We can only rent the homes that we believe we own. We only have a certificate of title. Certificate of title. Those of y'all with homes, take a look and let me know. Is this true? We only have a certificate of title to the car we think we own. See? The state owns the true title to our homes and to our cars, to everything we thought or think we own. You married the state through your marriage license, and your children became wards of the state. Yeah, it's a ward tour for real. This is a ward tour, a war torn world, a war torn country. All of this was pledged, including all the fruits of our future labor, to the bankers as security against what? The national debt, and was placed in the possession of the Secretary of State of each state as an agent for the trustee of the bankruptcy, the U.S. Secretary of Treasury. Who is the trustee of the bankruptcy, right? Since you want to know who the members of your so-called government are, you know what I mean, you know what I mean, you treat them like rock stars, celebrities and shit, but what do they do? Does anybody go into the polls, you know what I mean, and voting and doing all that shit? Do they really know what they do? This was further tightened up when we applied for our social security number after 1935 by contract, which we hurriedly and voluntarily entered into when the Social Security Act was signed into law. Then it was further solidified as we entered into additional contracts and applied for a variety of benefits and licenses, all voluntary affairs without full disclosure. This is just reading a book that I have, you know what I mean? So that maybe, you know what I mean, you can go and grab a piece of it and go look at this stuff for yourself. Because eventually, um, however the unification goes or the groupings go, it's how the groupings are gonna go. You know what I mean? You're gonna know what to do. You're gonna know, you know what I mean, yourself. You have your self knowledge, your knowledge of yourself, and differentiate and separate from these businesses and corporations. You know what I mean? And also be aware when you're starting your own business, you know what I mean, the type of contract you're getting into and how to set it up, you know what I mean, away from this which is a foreign, you know what I mean, occupier. You know what I mean? These is foreigners masquerading as a government. Facts. So, this was further tightened up when we applied for our Social Security number after 1935, so you need to get rid of that by contract, which we hurriedly and voluntarily entered into when the Social Security Act was signed into law. Then it was further solidified as we entered into additional contracts and applied for a variety of benefits and licenses, all voluntary affairs without full disclosure. Without full disclosure. Without full disclosure. Gotta have full disclosure. States lose sovereignty. That's the next section. We're gonna go through it because where am I trying to get to? We're gonna conclude it with contracts. So let's get through states lose sovereignty. All right. So President Roosevelt, right, then called all the governors into Washington, D.C. And we just went over what Washington, D.C. is, right? Washington, the District of Columbia, which is called the capital. And we went and we looked up what capital is, right? So President Roosevelt called all the governors, you know what I mean, for the company or the corporation into Washington, D.C. for a conference. This was the beginning of all states losing the remainder of their sovereignty. Sovereignty, the sovereign tie. It was not until 1944 that the corporate states lost all their power over the corporate United States with the Buck Act. And I have the Buck Act, you know what I mean, on my hard drive. I pull it up, but not right now. We're gonna keep on reading this we're gonna keep on reading this section right here. So with this act, the state became essentially 14th Amendment citizens as well. This completed the destruction of the corporate states having any power to protect against usurpation by the U.S. government. I say U.S. because again, companies have different names that they go under, logos, brand names, and things like our company, you know what I mean, which is the name of our group, you know what I mean, Black World Order, but it's also BWO, right? That stands for Black World Order. So in the same way, U.S. dot stands in for United States Corporation. So the corporate states now were under the jurisdiction or the words, you know what I mean, their words became law of Washington D.C. Washington, the District of Columbia, right? Now there's a country called Columbia, and then there's the District of Columbia. Funny that all around D.C. flowed that Colombian, you know. It's not white power, it's white powder. White powder, white powder. The adoption of the Uniform Commercial Code by all states in 1964 and a number of other like laws and acts were incorporated into this nation. This made the Uniform Commercial Code the supreme law of the land. The Uniform Commercial Code, the supreme law of the land. Let's run it back because again, you have to get the history that wasn't taught to us in school. In school, we wasn't really taught about the bankruptcy, you know what I mean, per se. We were taught about what happened because of the bankruptcy. Like we learned about the Great Depression and we learned about all the wars and shit. And those wars that occurred was because of this shit going on in the background with this company and the bankers, you know what I mean, and the family of bankers that they got involved with, which now has placed us involved with it because why? We signed our bodies over, you know what I mean, as surety for the bankruptcy. That's why it is that they're able to project the thing that they project towards us as a government. You know what I mean? But it's being tricked into a contract. Again, we didn't have full disclosure. So now we going through to see what the whole contract says and what it deals with. So as we continue on in 1976, Congress took away any semblance of law or justice left within our court system. All law today is now construed, constructed, and made up by the judge as it happens before your very eyes. You don't believe it. The military social construct, remember? known as the United States, acting through the guise of the quote United States in Congress assembled, end quote, took away any control or authority we might have had over the court system. You have to see Senate Bill 94 204, which deals with their court system, and Senate Bill 94 381, dealing with public law. This has been well hidden from us all. So we're going to highlight that right there. Senate Bill 94 204. And why? Because what's being talked about right now, you got a re-election coming up. Motherfuckers is, you know what I mean? They got their campaigns running. But look at the people that's running. Look at the type of people. They all businessmen, rich businessmen, and, you know what I mean, in some cases, women. You know what I mean? Take a look at the field. You know what I mean? Because again, United States is a corporation. It's a corporation in bankruptcy, you know what I mean? And everything is held at the Capitol because that's where the capital is. Washington, the District of Columbia. This is where Senate Bill 94 204, you know what I mean, was written and, you know what I mean, put before. Because this is where the Senate and the House are, right? In the Capitol. So you have to go back and you have to find out what a Senate is and all that shit. Because again, the words that we know and we use are layman's terms. The words that they use are the legalese that they made the definitions for and called Black's Law. Black's Law dictionary and the words in it were made shortly after the corporation was formed. That's why, you know what I mean, we use it. So I've copied it. Let's go to the Google gods and shit and pull up pull up this Senate bill. Let's see what it says. Paste Senate Bill 94 204. Alright. Let's open it up in governmentinfo.gov. Governmentinfo.gov gives us the PDF. Public Law 94 204, which is also called Senate Bill 94 204, January 2nd, 1976. On this page right here of this PDF, it starts from paragraph D, where it says, notwithstanding any other provision of this section or of any other law, no corporation referred to in this section may merge or consolidate with any other such corporations unless that corporation's shareholders have approved such merger or consolidation. E. The plan of merger or consolidation shall provide that the right of any affected village corporation pursuant to Section 14F to withhold consent to mineral exploration, development, or removal within the boundaries of the native village shall be conveyed as part of the merger or consolidation to a separate entity composed of the native residents of such native village. Right? Section 7. Section 17A 10 of the Settlement Act is amended to read as follows. 10. The Planning Commission shall submit in accordance with this paragraph comprehensive reports to the President of the United States, the Congress, and the Governor and Legislature of the state with respect to its planning and other activities under this act, together with its recommendations for programs or other actions which it determines should be implemented or taken by the United States and the state. An interim comprehensive report covering the above matter shall be so submitted on or before May 30th, 1976. A final and comprehensive report covering the above matter shall be so submitted on or before May 30th, 1979. The Commission shall cease to exist effective June 30th, 1979. So, the summary is this is a report to the President, Congress, Governor, and Legislature. 43 United States Code 1616. Interim report, final report, termination date. This was a change in public law. Let me go back and grab the other statute or Senate bill. See, Senate Bill 94204, which deals with their court system, and Senate Bill That's it. Paste that there. This is Public Law 94-204, an act to provide under or by amendment of the Alaska Native Claims Settlement Act for the late enrollment of certain natives, the establishment of an escrow account for the proceeds of certain lands, the treatment of certain payments and grants, and the consolidation of existing regional corporations and for other purposes. Escrow account. Merger of native corporations. Let me make sure I download this though. Alright, that's that one. And then Public Law 94-381 to improve judicial machinery by amending the requirement for a three-judge court in certain cases and for other purposes. Alright, and let me download that. And got these documents on deck. If you ain't searching for them, try to organize them into something and share along. Anyway, many of us who go into court often wonder why and how the courts can simply override their laws, as we've cited those very laws within our paperwork, right? It's very simple. Now that we know how they do it, they operate on their words, construe and construct. A simple word such as in changed to at, as in at law or in law, has a totally separate meaning, right? Because you don't go see your at laws, you go see your in laws, right? And that means something because these became your family in law, right? You married into in the law, corporation shit. That's just me freestyling. I don't know. I gotta go and look that up to confirm or deny. Has a totally separate meaning. For example, if you're in the river, you are wet. You can swim, etc. But if you're at the river, you might enjoy a refreshing picnic, play baseball, or run races. See the difference a simple word can make? Exactly. And the attorneys often change this word when they answer your emotions, in addition to many others. You will be paid in dividends when you read the answers of attorneys to your paperwork. Compare what they claim their case law says to the actual case law itself. You'll discover that they have actually changed the words therein. This is illegal, you might say. No, not according to the Senate bills above mentioned. You see, they can now construe and construct any law or statute to mean whatever they decide it means for their benefit. You don't know any of this. You think they are railroading you in a kangaroo court. No, they are legal in what they do, according to the present social compact contract, which they are bound to uphold. They usually follow the law to the letter, their law, private international law, the law of contract, with you know or with which blah, which you know nothing about. This law is called contract law. And as I said, we're gonna finish it up with this section right here. Contracts. See what our time is, what we running at. Oh, we already in it. Hour and some change. Hold on. Alright. Failure to understand the above and realize what law you are dealing with when you go into their court will only lead to failure. And we done all been there. A lot of the people that I know and myself. Even if you filed your UCC 1 and have captured your title and your artificial entity, this makes no difference in their courts. Why? They operate in total fiction in the land of Oz in respect to any assumed standing which you may, by mistake, think otherwise. They can only recognize contracts. You are a real sentient being outside of their created social compact. Contractually speaking, whatever you file in their court, whether it is your UCC 1 or use any of their perceived law, which is copyrighted in the administrative or judicial power of their original jurisdiction inside their established social compacts or otherwise, is all that is real, lawful, and credibly in truth to them. They do not recognize truth of any sort other than by such compacts or the treaties between such social compacts. They only recognize fictions known as corporations, which they administer and or contract law governing social compacts and their corporations and such applicable treaties between them. They only recognize fictions known as corporations, which they administer and or Contract law governing social compacts and their corporations and such applicable treaties between them. That's all they recognize. So when you go into any court, be aware that it is their private copyrighted law that the judge or the prosecutor can construe and construct that law in any fashion they choose. They call this practicing law. It will always mean what they choose it to mean, according to the present custom, usages, and practices of the day. So, are their courts bound by the Constitution, law, statutes? No. Their courts are bound by contracts only. Contracts only. And the statutes used to enforce the contracts. When we use their statutes, constitution, UCC, rules and regulations, all copyrighted without a license from the bar, we are in violation of copyright infringement and punishment is mandatory, right? There is no law in this illusionary nation state. Read Norman Angel's The Great Illusion, 1910, reprinted in 1933. Under whatever form or name for which such is known, or the world for that matter, there is only contract law by which the private people, sovereigns, treat with one another in the so called global public forum, where commerce is concerned and is the order of the day, known as the International Public Order, IPO, via private international law, PIL, pills, IPOs and pills, between sovereigns and or their created social compact and corporate constructs. And we're going to finish it right there. We'll summarize it another time.